Welcome to the FoCo 15, Forsyth County Government's official audio podcast, where we put the spotlight on what makes our community such a great place to live, work, play, and raise a family. From community leaders and elected officials to local businesses and residents with a unique story to tell, along with answers to your questions about the county and the latest county news. This podcast covers all things FoCo, from McGinnis Ferry to Matt Community and everything in between. Around Forsyth, there are some unique communities and HOAs. Some have great pools and clubhouses as their centerpieces, others utilize Lake Lanier, and some have retail amenities right outside their front door. But one in South Forsyth might take the prize for most unique. That's because instead of a pool or playground, they have a private airfield in their neighborhood. County Manager Kevin Tanner recently took a trip to the Stoney Point Airfield Community to speak to the residents, or should we say pilots, that live in this aviation-focused neighborhood.
All right, Jeff, glad to be here with you out at your home. But we're actually standing in the middle of an airport, right?
Yeah, it's a real unusual, at least for this part of Forsyth County, an unusual opportunity for people to live with their airplanes. It's the only airport like this in the county, a residential private airport.
It's kind of unusual for any place, right? Anywhere.
That's true. You find people living with their boats and so forth a lot more than you do with their airplanes, but we sure love it.
Now, Jeff, how long have you lived here in this community?
I've been here since 1997.
So you've been here a long
quite
time.
A while.
Residents in the community share a 2,500-foot-long grass runway that is surrounded by their homes and hangars that house everything from gliders to Cessnas and anything in between. As for the homeowners taking to the sky, Jeff Perry has been flying for over 40 years, but it's his 14-year-old daughter that is taking the keys to the family plane more often these days.
She knows a lot. She's almost 15 years old.
Oh, I've got 4 daughters, and I know exactly how that goes. So who's going to be a better pilot then, you or your daughter?
According to her, she's already better.
Good. Well, introduce us to your daughter.
So this is Lindy, named after Lucky Lindy, the famous pilot who flew nonstop solo across the Atlantic Ocean back in 1927. My other daughter's named Piper after the airplane that we fly today, which is a 1954 Piper Super Cub. So we're an aviation family all the way through.
That's good. Lindy, thank you for being with us today, too. Now, you're, how old are you again?
I'm 14.
And did I understand your dad correctly that you're 14 years old and you already have soloed? That means, and for people who may not understand what that means you've gotten in an airplane, taken off completely by yourself, and then landed. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, when did you start learning how to fly?
I was about 13 when I started learning.
Now, your dad was telling me that you think you're a better pilot than he is. Is that the case?
He's pretty good.
Is he?
That's the first time she's ever said that.
But so that's your dad says the first time you've ever admitted that. So we got you kind of on tape here. So you, out of all the things you get to do at 14 years old, and you got all these friends and other things, I'm assuming, are you the only person at 14 that you know that's out flying an airplane on Saturdays?
I know a couple people, but yeah, it's not super common.
Looking ahead, because you're 14 years old, what grade are you going to be in?
I'm going to be in 9th grade.
So you'll be in 9th grade. You'll be going into high school at the Alliance Academy next year. Looking out into your future, what's your plans after high school?
I want to fly for the airlines, so I want to have a career related to aviation, so something like that.
You're a special young lady, and it's very impressive. I was telling your dad I had taken some lessons, but never finished my lessons, so I'm a little envious that I was outdone by a 13 and a 14-year-old today. So let me ask you a question, because as I look around here, I see houses and I see hangars and houses. So does every single house here have a hangar?
Almost. There's one house with no hangar, and that was the original owner of the property who is not a pilot, so she just has a house. The rest of us all have hangars. Some have hangars in houses, some have hangars with apartments in them. It's a real mix, a typical flying community, really.
That's great. How often, on a day like today when it's beautiful, how often is someone taking off and landing here typically?
It really depends. Some days there might be 5 or 6 of us up at the same time, and we'll fly formation. And I'm sure a lot of folks in the southern part of the county have seen several of our aircraft practicing their formation work. But, there might be days like this when no one flies at all. But for the most part, we spread our wings as soon as the winds are calm and the sun is shining.
That's good. So you said you're getting ready to take off today?
Yes.
Who's going to be doing the flight?
Oh, Lindy, of course.
The better pilot. We feel safer. Thank you.
For Stoney Point Airfield Community HOA President Cal Text, whose father was an instructor during World War II and who's been flying since he was a young teen, it's no surprise that Lindy and other kids living in this neighborhood get their wings early.
It's just like, if you live, a lot of people live on a golf course community, and it's natural for kids to pick up golf because everybody else in the family in the neighborhood's playing golf. Well, in this neighborhood, everybody's flying airplanes, and it's just natural. Now some people don't do it and some people don't care about it, but if you have the interest, this is a great place to do it.
Now, talking about this neighborhood, when was this neighborhood first built?
Well, Jeff Perry, who you just talked to for a little while, he's been out here longer than I have. I think it was built back in the middle 80s. It was owned by a private owner then. It was just, and the fellow that lived here owned the airport and built the runway. Actually, I think he cut the trees down. It was just farmland. I don't really know all the history of it, but I know he built the runway for his own use. And I think his long-range plans were to subdivide some of the extra property he didn't have and sell it off as residential property so other people would share it with him.
Now,
he's no longer with us, but anyway.
How many people live here?
I think we have about 10 permanent residents, and 10 or 11, is that right? I think it's 10 residents, and we have several people, like right across there there's a hangar, and there's room to build a house, but the person he doesn't live in the hangar, and he just keeps his airplane there, and we have 3 or 4 like that, where they just keep their airplanes out here, but they don't have a residence here. They could build a house. Each lot is anywhere from 3 to 4 or 5 acres.
Okay. And how long's your runway?
It's just a little. It's about 2,500 feet long. About maybe a little over a quarter of a mile.
And just out of curiosity, your typical runway that you need to be able to land and take off in these types of planes, what does it normally need to be?
Well, for like these airplanes here, most of these airplanes like that Super Cub and the Stearman and stuff, you don't need more than about 700 or 800 feet, and we have 2,400 feet, so we have plenty of room for smaller airplanes.
Now
there are some fellows that I just heard one running. He's got a big twin-engine business plane down there. It's a 2-engine Cessna, and that airplane is about the biggest you'd want to put on a runway like this. It'll take off easily. Landing is probably more critical than taking off, because you don't take off real heavy and all that stuff.
So the landing strip is the grass, right, between the two roads.
The road is just access around the runway for the residents to drive on, but the grass is the actual surface that we use for taking off and landing.
Homeowner Greg Bitzer told Tanner that while homeowners do most of the taking off and landing from the airstrip, there has been an occasion or two where an emergency landing was needed.
One of the things that I had heard about your community was that you had been recognized maybe by the military at one point for helping. Was it a Marine Cobra or something that had some problems?
So it was a Cobra gunship that had just come back from Afghanistan, and they had a chip detector that went off in the rotor. There's essentially a metal detector, and if that goes off and you lose the rotor in that plane, it's a certain crash. So they put it down immediately. It just happened to be here, and they brought a couple other helicopters, brought in some support teams. They repaired it here and then took off after giving us a great demonstration of the prowess of that machine.
You didn't get to fly, though.
Unfortunately, no.
Well, that's great. And I would assume that because you're here, if there was some type of disaster or something that came up, that whether it's GEMA or someone else and there was an emergency, this would be a great place for them.
This would be a fabulous place if we had an emergency. We could really provide emergency services with a place for helicopters or even small aircraft or something like that, and we'd be happy to assist anybody in any kind of emergency, because there's no other facility like this in Forsyth County.
Well, we're going to definitely let our EMA director, Chris Grimes, know if he hasn't already been out to talk to you. But we want to thank you for taking the opportunity to speak with us today, and we're getting ready to get to see a plane take off.
Yeah.
That's a 14-year-old girl that lives here.
Girl flying that airplane.
Looks like she kept it nice and steady.
Oh yeah, she's really good.
Yeah, that's incredible.
To see great pictures and video from our trip to the Stoney Point Airfield Community, including a video of Lindy flying her plane, be sure to visit and follow Forsyth County Government on Facebook. And remember, if you have an interesting story to tell or want us to put the spotlight on your community, email us, forsythpr@forsythco.com, to share your FoCo story. Heroes are all around us, and you probably see them every day putting themselves in harm's way. Sheriff's deputies helping someone stranded on the side of the road, or firefighters and paramedics rushing to the scene of an accident usually are the first images that come to mind when you think of local heroes saving lives. But there is another group of heroes within the county that you might not always see that are keeping us safe. 911 communication officers are always there ready to take the call, and that's something that Fire Chief Barry Head and Forsyth County Sheriff Ron Freeman certainly can appreciate.
They are the critical first link in the 911 and emergency response chain, and we would not be able to do what we do if it weren't for them. The quality of our 911 response hinges on how they do their job, and they do it exceptionally well.
911 is vital to what we do. It's a job that's often in the shadows and unseen, and they're kind of our unsung heroes in this. When you have an emergency at home, they're the ones that tell us you need something, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's fire, whether it's medical services, whatever it is. They're the ones who are keeping my deputies safe. They're giving us vital information as we're responding to that emergency. They are literally the lifeline that saves lives, not only for our citizens, but for our public safety professionals that are there.
The quality of our emergency response directly hinges on them and how well they do their job, and we couldn't do what we do today if it wasn't for them.
For Emergency Management Agency and 911 Center Director Chris Grimes, the voice at the other end of someone's desperate call for help is often the most vital component to saving a life.
911 is what I would call, and what a lot of people refer to as, we're the first responders. Right? We don't have vehicles that are out there with flashing lights and sirens, but we are the first responder.
Currently, the county's 911 center is seeking communications officers ready to answer those calls and be the first responder for our community's emergencies.
Look, it's a hard job, but it's a fantastic job. Look, they are doing things that sometimes few human beings are capable of doing. But that doesn't mean that someone out there is not capable of doing that. Look, if you got a heart for others, if you want to help your community, you think you're better suited to be on the backside, not on the front line, i.e. out in the field, but you still want to help, you still want to make a difference, 911 is probably the place for you.
When we're looking to hire a 911 operator, we're looking for somebody who's 18 years of age or older, has a high school diploma or equivalent, and we're looking at somebody who can remain, be level-headed under pressure. We save lives. Every day, we are helping somebody get help there that is likely saving their life.
They are kind of the unsung heroes in public safety. Even though you don't see them out driving a patrol car or a fire truck or an ambulance, they are first responders. They are often first on the scene, so to speak, even though they're not there in person. And them obtaining all the information and relaying that to us in real time allows us to do what we do, and we thank them for that.
The 911 Center is looking for both Level 1 and Level 2 communication officers, and even has various incentive programs to those that are brought on board.
It is a great place to work because, one, we're family. The 911 Center here and the county as a whole, we treat each other like family. And so it's great benefits. We offer probably some of the best benefits in government. We have an incredibly hardworking, well-trained group of telecommunicators that work in Forsyth County, who I personally appreciate every day because of the hard work that they put in to this 911 Center. They put their heart and soul into this place, and we would not survive as a community without the 911 Center.
Learn more about the great opportunities with the 911 Center and countywide by visiting forsythco.com and going to the community page to see all employment opportunities. Coming up on the next edition of the FoCo 15, we'll learn about a historic discovery near downtown Cumming that you're not going to want to miss. Join us as we learn about what that discovery is and how the county is honoring it on the next FoCo 15.